All right, this next question is one that, Greg, you actually touched on the answer to this to some extent, but maybe the two of you could expand on it. It comes from Richard Surser from Tucson, Arizona. He says, Berkshire's annual report indicated that Berkshire had 391,539 employees at the end of 2019. Which areas of our operations have already been hardest hit or will be by the coronavirus pandemic, and what are the implications for the continued employment of those people?
Those people are employed in dozens and dozens of different industries, and there are a few industries that there's a fair likelihood that our employment could be reduced, but they're not large. I'm just thinking as I'm talking. I mean, it's not like we're in the some of the businesses that are, we're not in the hotel business or various aspects of travel and entertainment and all of that that could really be changed in a very major way. So I don't see our employment. I'll put it this way: 5 years from now, I think Berkshire will be employing considerably more people, and I don't see where we'll have large dips. But the virus could take off in certain ways that in some of our manufacturing businesses, for example, the demand could be dramatically reduced, and in those cases we would have layoffs at some point. Greg?
What I would add, Warren, is that as we are in the sort of crux of the pandemic, we're still dealing with it, so our businesses have adjusted. Some have had to adjust more. We have, if you look at Berkshire Hathaway Energy, for example, you can see U.S. electricity consumption's down 4%. That realistically doesn't impact that business in a significant way, and longer term we'll continue to grow that business. So even during the crisis, a relatively small impact to the business. But as Warren knows, we do have retailers that their doors are shut right now, be it our See's Candy, some of our jewelers, and at that point in time, we do adjust and adapt to the environment, i.e. we adjust our workforce, but equally we do see, for example, See's, at a point our stores will reopen, and at that point we re-employ the folks. And overall for Berkshire as a whole, as Warren said, 5 years from now, we see our employment numbers being far greater than they are today, in that we see great prospects within the operating businesses as a whole.
Yeah, See's is an interesting example because we've owned that since 1972. That's a long time, and we love it, and we continue to love it. And I have a box here of our peanut brittle, and I've got another box of fudge right here, and I'll probably take them all home and not share with Greg. But we were in the midst of our Easter season, and Easter is a big sales period for See's, and I don't know whether we were halfway through, but we weren't halfway through in terms of the volume that was going to be delivered, because it comes toward the end. And essentially we were shut down, and we remain shut down. The malls, we've got 220 or so retail stores, and we've got a lot of Furniture Mart sells our candy, but the Furniture Mart's closed down. And so See's business stopped. And it's a very seasonal business to start with, so we have a lot of seasonal workers too that come in, particularly for the Christmas season. But we have a lot of Easter candy. Easter candy's kind of specialized too, so we won't sell it. And we produced a good bit of it, and we couldn't ship it, and we couldn't put it in stores, and there's some of that's going on, and of course Greg does all the work on those sort of situations, and our managers are terrific, of course, in dealing with it. But this is a very, very unusual period, and like I say, a few years from now, I think Berkshire will be employing more people than 395,000. Over the years, we started with 2,000 at the textile business, and we've still got the same playbook. It's-
This next question comes from Drew Johnson, who says that he's a longtime shareholder who's attended a couple of meetings. He says in an interview on April 17th, Charlie mentioned that some small businesses owned by Berkshire would not reopen after the pandemic eases. Can you elaborate on which businesses might be impacted?
Well, even we have businesses within businesses. At Marmon, don't we have 97 different businesses, for example?
Exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, and there are some that weren't doing that well before. And I'm not talking about Marmon specifically, but they got a couple of them, and there's a couple of, and it may be that in effect what's happened in the last couple of months has accelerated the decline of those businesses, or their customers are developing different habits. I mean, people are developing different habits in retail. There's no question about that. Now, that doesn't mean we haven't got a bunch of good retail businesses, but there are businesses that were having problems before, and that have even greater problems now. We don't own our newspapers anymore, but we're financing the enterprise which does have them. We've actually increased our investment in the newspaper business by selling the papers to Lee and then refinancing their debt. And the newspaper business was having plenty of problems with both circulation and advertising before the virus came along, but advertising declines every place have accelerated fairly dramatically. And when the automobile industry stops, the auto dealers don't advertise as much. It's made certain businesses that were tough before even tougher now. And there will be management of at least one of the subsidiaries has suggested to us, and so there'll be some changes at a few businesses, but they're very small businesses. Our major businesses and our business of intermediate size, I can't think of anything that's of significance that won't reopen. But it won't be any fun with the businesses where the world has really changed. You're seeing a lot of change. If you own a shopping center, you've got a bunch of tenants that don't want to pay you right now. We don't, and the supply and demand for retail space may change fairly significantly. The supply and demand for office space may change significantly. A lot of people have learned that they can work at home, or that there's other methods of conducting their business than they might have thought from what they were doing a couple of years ago. And when change happens in the world, you adjust to it.
Yeah, I think go ahead.
Becky, I think Greg won. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to add on the Marmon example, our 97 companies there. For example, we have a food service group which sells equipment to a variety of the restaurants. We have a few businesses that realistically were challenged when the industry was performing really well. And as we come out of the crisis, their economic prospects aren't going to be better. And in fairness to the teams and the employees in there, they understand that and they're working through it, and there'll be other opportunities potentially within the company, within Marmon and things like that. But there's a very specific answer or example relative to the question.